So we're going to start talking about inequalities. We've been talking about equations this whole time, and inequalities are very, very similar. Today we're going to talk about solving and graphing inequalities. So if you would add that to your table of contents. I'm on page 45. Mark whatever page it is that you're on. And when we look at inequalities, we need to think about those specific symbols that represent an inequality. So remember, inequality means exactly what it says, as in not equal, right? So we have four different signs for inequalities. We have less than, we have greater than, we have less than or equal to, and then we have greater than or equal to. And it's really important that you know how to say these symbols. You take your left hand, it makes an L. It also makes that less than symbol, left hand less than. So we're going to look at a couple of word problems today and focus on not just solving and graphing inequalities, but also being able to write those, because again, writing is the hardest part. So we're going to paraphrase this particular situation. It says Carrie's grandmother is helping her pay for guitar lessons. So she has set up a special savings account to pay for the lessons. On the first of each month, so we're going to write this part. On the first of each month, $40 monthly fee for guitar lessons is withdrawn from Carrie's account that her grandmother set up. Okay, and we're also going to say that the account is going to start with with $300. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to make a table to demonstrate these things. Also, keep in mind, we've been talking about M and B. So $40 is each month. So this is in fact our M, and we're starting with 300. This is our B in our equation, y equals mx plus b. So we're going to make a little table here. We're going to say this is the month, and this is the balance. And we're going to just show what happens. So on month 1, Carrie has $300. But then when we get to month 2, we are subtracting $40 each month. That is our slope, change in y over change in x. And so now we're at 260. And then we're going to take $40 out the next month because she has to pay for the lesson. So now she's at 220. And then the next month, she's at 180. And then the next month, she's at 140. Okay? So that way we can see what's happening each month. So remember, in a table, this is always our x, this is always our y, our independent and our dependent. So now we need to write an expression for the amount of money in Carrie's guitar lessons account. X is the number of months, which we already labeled, and Y is the amount of money. So if we had to write an equation for this, we have our M, we have our B. We could write $300, this is our B, minus 40, because they're taking that out each month, times X equals Y, our balance. So then if I told you, okay, so we've got our equation. I want to know a new equation to determine the account balance when it will be $100. So that means we're going to take and we're going to put $100 in place of the Y. Okay? right? And if we solved this, then we could go ahead and figure out how many months until there's only $100 left. Well, if we went one more, we would see that it's 5. Right? So it says the bank will close the account if the balance falls below $50. To keep the account open, the balance must be greater than or equal to $50. So, greater than or equal to. So now we can not write an equation, but now we can write an inequality. So we're going to take our equation that we wrote a minute ago, 300 minus 40x, and instead of 100 we have 50. And this balance, this is where the balance is, must be greater than or equal to 50. So we're going to use this inequality symbol. Now, sometimes they will flip-flop this. You may also see this written as 50 on the left and 300 minus 40x on the right. In that case, then we have to think about what this says. So it says the smaller, the point is at the 50. So we're going to keep the point at the 50. If you flip-flop the numbers and the letters, you have to also flip-flop that inequality. So these mean the same thing. Okay, they're just written backwards. So we're going to keep going, and we want to find the last month that the balance is $50 or greater. So if we look at our table that we were starting up here, if we keep our table going, right? So at 5, so we would say this 140 minus 40 is 100. 6, 100 minus 40 is 60. 7 minus 40, so 60 minus 40 is going to be 20. So we can see here at 6 months, because the question was, find the last month that the balance is greater or equal to 50. So at 6 months, this is the last month when we are greater than, I wrote that backwards, greater than or equal to 50. So after 6 months, if we don't put more money in there, the bank is going to close the account because this is below 50. That's not a good thing. All right. So now we can go ahead. We're going to look at how this looks in a graph. So if I come over here and I drew a graph, think of a real life situation where you might use terms such as more than, less than, no more than, or no less than. You can think about things with grades. You can think about money. Money is a really big one. So if I gave you this graph right here, 0, 1, 2, 3, -1, -2, -3, and I put an open circle, I'm not going to close it in, and I'm going to draw an arrow this way. We need to be able to think about what that looks like as an inequality. So I'm going to make a little table over here for you, and this should be a review because you should have done inequalities before, where we have open circles and closed circles, and we're going to talk about what those are. So if it is less than or it is greater than, it is an open circle. If it's less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, it's going to be closed, because when it's closed, that means that we're including that particular number. This one is open, so we would write x is going to be one of these, and all of these numbers, how do they compare to 0? They are greater than 0. Okay? So we're going to practice now writing a couple of word problems out. Ariana's mom, so this is going to be example 2. We have a deposit of $80 in her lunch account, and lunch costs, I'm just going to abbreviate so we're not writing quite so much, $2.50 per day. So per, remember, that is going to be your multiply word. So this is your M, this is your B. Define the variable. Write an inequality to represent when there will be. When will there be less than $20 in the lunch account? That's the question. So we need to write our inequality, and it's costing, so this M is going to be a negative. So we can write 80 minus $2.50, and then we have 20 over here. So we have to think about, this is our balance. The question is, when will the balance be less than 20? So less than 20. Michelle, I'm gonna write 2 for you to practice, and then we're gonna talk about them in class. So Michelle babysits on weekends in her neighborhood. She charges $10 for transportation. And $15 for each hour. At her last babysitting job, she earned less than $60. So I want you to write an inequality for that to represent that. I'm just going to give you that one, and we'll talk about this when you come to class.